These 5 foods for dealing with sciatica, each one targets a specific mechanism in the sciatica inflammatory pathway, and together they create an anti-inflammatory nutritional environment that gives your sciatic nerve the best possible conditions for reducing pain and beginning recovery. I am Dr. Ryan Mitchell. I have spent over 20 years in medicine focused on senior health, and today I am going to walk you through 5 specific foods with the exact science of why each one helps sciatica and a complete daily eating protocol that your sciatic nerve has been waiting for. Drop your age and city in the comments right now. I want to know who is watching this. 5 seconds. Then let us get into these 5 foods. Food number 1 is fatty fish, specifically salmon, sardines, and mackerel. And I want to explain the mechanism with the precision it deserves because omega-3s are anti-inflammatory has become such a common phrase that it has lost its meaning. Let me tell you exactly what is happening at the molecular level. When you eat fatty fish, the EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids it contains are incorporated into the phospholipid membranes of your immune cells, the same cells that are producing inflammation around your sciatic nerve root. Once incorporated, these omega-3s compete with arachidonic acid, the omega-6 fatty acid that serves as the substrate for the inflammatory enzymes COX2 and 5-LOX for access to those enzymes. When EPA and DHA occupy the COX2 enzyme, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, fewer inflammatory prostaglandins are produced, the same effect ibuprofen achieves, but through a dietary mechanism rather than pharmacological blockade. Second, EPA and DHA are themselves converted into compounds called resolvins and protectins, molecules that actively resolve inflammation rather than simply suppressing it. These are not just anti-inflammatory, they are pro-resolving. They signal the immune system to begin clearing inflammatory debris from the nerve tissue rather than simply turning down the volume of the inflammatory response. A meta-analysis published in the journal Pain Medicine examined the evidence for omega-3 fatty acids in neuropathic pain, the category that includes sciatica, and found consistent, significant reductions in pain scores across multiple studies. The effects were strongest for the burning and shooting qualities of pain, precisely the qualities most characteristic of sciatic nerve irritation. How much and how often? 2 to 3 servings of fatty fish per week provides clinically meaningful omega-3 levels. If fatty fish is not practical for you, high-quality fish oil at 2 to 3 grams of combined EPA and DHA daily is a validated alternative. Take it with a meal that contains fat for optimal absorption. Food number 2 is turmeric, specifically consumed with black pepper. Turmeric contains curcumin, a polyphenol that has been studied more extensively for its anti-inflammatory properties than almost any other dietary compound. And its mechanism of action for sciatica is extraordinarily specific. Curcumin directly inhibits NF-κB, the master transcription factor that sits at the top of the inflammatory cascade and controls the expression of dozens of inflammatory genes simultaneously. When NF-κB is activated, which happens when disc material contacts the nerve root, it switches on the production of COX2, 5-LOX, TNFA, and multiple interleukins that collectively produce the inflammatory environment that sensitizes the sciatic nerve. Curcumin blocks NF-κB activation, not partially, significantly. A study published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine found that curcumin produced pain reductions in knee osteoarthritis that were comparable to ibuprofen, but without the gastrointestinal side effects. For sciatic nerve inflammation specifically, which shares the same NF-κB-mediated inflammatory pathway, the mechanism is directly applicable. But here is the critical fact that most people who try turmeric never know. Curcumin on its own is almost completely insoluble in water and has extremely poor gut absorption. Studies show that without an absorption enhancer, as little as 1% of consumed curcumin reaches the bloodstream. The solution is piperine, the active compound in black pepper, which inhibits the enzymes that break down curcumin in the gut and increases curcumin bioavailability by up to 2,000%. A small pinch of black pepper with your turmeric transforms it from a mildly beneficial spice into a genuinely powerful anti-inflammatory intervention. Add 1 teaspoon of turmeric and a generous pinch of black pepper to warm water with a small amount of coconut oil. The fat further enhances curcumin absorption. Drink this every morning. Alternatively, add turmeric and black pepper to soups, scrambled eggs, roasted vegetables, or rice. The compound accumulates in tissue over weeks of consistent use. The benefit is not immediate, but becomes significant at 4 to 6 weeks of daily consumption. Food number 3 is ginger. Ginger works through a mechanism that complements turmeric rather than duplicating it, which is why consuming them together is more powerful than either alone. The active compounds in ginger, gingerols and shogols, are selective inhibitors of the 5-LOX enzyme. You will remember this enzyme from my Boswellia video. 5-LOX is the pathway that produces leukotrienes, a class of inflammatory mediators that are particularly potent in nerve tissue and that drive a significant component of the burning, shooting pain of sciatica that COX inhibitors alone do not fully address. Ginger also inhibits substance P synthesis. Substance P is a neuropeptide, a signaling molecule produced by nerve cells that both amplifies pain signals and promotes tissue inflammation simultaneously. It creates a self-reinforcing cycle in which pain causes more substance P release, which causes more pain and more inflammation. Breaking this cycle is one of the most important steps in resolving chronic sciatica. Ginger's substance P inhibition directly interrupts this cycle. A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Phytotherapy Research found that ginger supplementation produced significant reductions in pain scores and inflammatory markers in adults with chronic musculoskeletal pain, with effects that were maintained throughout the 12-week study period and that continued to improve rather than plateau. Fresh ginger is more potent than dried ginger because it contains higher concentrations of gingerols, the fresh form of the active compounds that convert to shogols when dried or cooked. Grate fresh ginger into hot water with lemon and honey as a daily tea. Add it generously to stir-fries, soups, and smoothies. A daily intake equivalent to 1 to 2 teaspoons of freshly grated ginger provides meaningful anti-inflammatory activity. Now, before I give you the 4th and 5th foods, I want to tell you about a patient of mine whose experience with these foods changed how I approach sciatica management in my practice. Her name was Catherine. She was 62 years old when she first came to see me, 8 months into a bout of left-sided sciatica that had begun after a long flight. Her MRI showed a small disc protrusion at L4-L5 with mild contact on the left nerve root. Her orthopedic surgeon had described it as moderate in severity. Her pain experience was anything but moderate. She rated her daily pain at 7 out of 10. The burning ran from her lower back all the way to the outside of her left foot. She was sleeping on the floor because lying in bed made it worse. She had tried 2 rounds of physical therapy, 1 epidural steroid injection that helped for 3 weeks, and was on daily naproxen that she described as taking the edge off but not really controlling it. When I reviewed everything Catherine was doing, the one area that had received absolutely no attention in 8 months of treatment was her diet. Her inflammatory markers, CRP and IL-6, were significantly elevated. Her omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, assessed through a dietary intake analysis, was approximately 18 to 1, nearly 5 times higher than optimal. She ate virtually no fatty fish. She used primarily corn and soybean oil in cooking. She consumed significant amounts of processed food with high refined sugar content. She was nutritionally providing the inflammation around her sciatic nerve with everything it needed to remain active and essentially nothing it needed to resolve. I gave Catherine the dietary protocol I am sharing with you today. Fatty fish 3 times per week. Turmeric with black pepper and fat every morning. Fresh ginger daily. The 4th and 5th foods I will describe shortly. I also recommended she replace her cooking oils with extra virgin olive oil entirely and reduce refined sugar to the minimum she could manage. At her 6-week follow-up, Catherine told me her pain had shifted, not dramatically, but the burning quality, the constant electric quality that she described as the worst part, had reduced noticeably. She was sleeping in her bed again. At 12 weeks, her pain rating had dropped from 7 to 4. Her CRP had fallen by 38%. At 6 months, she was at 2 to 3 out of 10 on most days. She had returned to walking, which she had abandoned 8 months earlier. Her surgeon, at a follow-up imaging review, noted that her disc protrusion appeared slightly reduced, consistent with the natural resolution that occurs when the inflammatory environment around a herniation is modulated. Catherine had not had surgery. She had not had further injections. She had changed what she ate. That is the story I want you to carry into the last two foods. Food number 4 is walnuts. I discussed walnuts extensively in my sciatica video on this channel, and if you have not seen that video, I will link it at the end of this one. But I want to add here a specific mechanism that I did not cover there, one that is particularly relevant when discussing daily eating for sciatica management. Walnuts contain melatonin in bioavailable concentrations that are meaningful when consumed regularly. Melatonin, beyond its well-known role in sleep regulation, has direct analgesic and neuroprotective effects at the spinal cord level. It binds to melatonin receptors in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, the first processing station for pain signals coming from the sciatic nerve, and reduces the excitability of the pain-transmitting neurons there. Research published in the Journal of Pineal Research has shown that melatonin receptor activation in the dorsal horn produces significant reductions in neuropathic pain, the category that includes sciatica, through mechanisms that are distinct from and complementary to the anti-inflammatory effects produced by omega-3s, curcumin, and ginger. Walnuts also remain the tree nut with the highest alpha-linolenic acid content, the plant-based omega-3 that complements the direct EPA and DHA from fatty fish in building the anti-inflammatory phospholipid membrane composition I described for food number 1. 1 ounce of raw walnuts, 7 whole walnuts or 14 halves, every morning with breakfast, raw or dry roasted only. Store them in the refrigerator to prevent oxidation of the delicate omega-3 content. Food number 5 is dark leafy greens, specifically spinach and Swiss chard. These 2 vegetables earn their place on this list through 2 mechanisms that the other 4 foods do not cover: magnesium density and folate content. Magnesium is the mineral I discussed in detail in my back pain video. For sciatica specifically, its role at NMDA receptors is critically important. NMDA receptors on the neurons that process sciatic pain signals are normally blocked by magnesium ions. This blockade prevents the excessive calcium influx that produces central sensitization, the process through which the nervous system amplifies pain signals beyond what the actual tissue damage would justify. When magnesium is deficient, which it is in approximately 70% of seniors, this natural NMDA blockade weakens. The pain signals from the sciatic nerve arrive amplified rather than modulated. The burning is more intense, the shooting travels further, the pain lasts longer. Spinach provides approximately 150 milligrams of magnesium per cooked cup, one of the highest food sources available. Swiss chard provides a similar amount and additionally contains betalains, the same class of pigments I discussed in the dragon fruit section of my eye health video, which have direct anti-inflammatory activity in vascular and nerve tissue. Folate, present in high concentrations in both spinach and Swiss chard, is required for the synthesis of SAM, S-adenosilmethionine, the body's universal methyl donor. SAM plays a direct role in the repair and maintenance of myelin, the protective sheath around nerve fibers, including the sciatic nerve. When folate is deficient, SAM production falls, myelin maintenance is impaired, and the sciatic nerve becomes more vulnerable to irritation and less capable of recovering from inflammatory damage. Eat 2 large handfuls of spinach or Swiss chard daily, raw in salads, sautéed in olive oil with garlic, blended into smoothies where the flavor is completely masked by fruit, stirred into soups in the final minutes of cooking. The cooking method matters less than the consistency of consumption. Let me give you the complete daily sciatica fighting eating protocol. Every morning, 1 ounce of raw walnuts with breakfast, 1 teaspoon of turmeric, plus a generous pinch of black pepper, plus a teaspoon of olive oil in warm water, or added to your meal. 2 large handfuls of spinach or Swiss chard, in a smoothie, in eggs, in a salad. At least 2 to 3 times per week. 1 to 2 servings of fatty fish, salmon, sardines, or mackerel, baked, grilled, or eaten from a tin with olive oil. Every day, fresh ginger, 1 to 2 teaspoons grated into hot water as a tea, into a smoothie, or into any cooked meal. This is not a complicated protocol. It requires no exotic ingredients. It costs less than most people spend on supplements that produce no measurable benefit, and it targets the specific biological mechanisms driving sciatic nerve inflammation through 5 complementary pathways simultaneously. Catherine is walking 3 miles a week now. Her pain is manageable. Her mornings are no longer defined by what her sciatica will allow. She told me at her last appointment that the hardest part of the protocol was believing it could make a difference. The easiest part was doing it. Give it 12 weeks. Genuine, consistent, daily 12 weeks, and then tell me in the comments what changed. Drop your age and city below right now and tell me which of these 5 foods you are going to add first. I read every single comment and I reply to as many as I can. Share this video with someone dealing with sciatica. Not a summary, this video, because the science behind why these foods help is what makes the difference between someone who tries something once and someone who commits to it long enough to feel the result. Subscribe to this channel, hit the bell, new senior health video every single week. I am Dr. Ryan Mitchell. Your sciatic nerve is inflamed. Feed it what it needs to heal. I will see you in the next one.